You cried at a drawing. Let's be precise about what happened, because the details matter. A group of strangers in a studio arranged colored shapes on a screen. Another stranger recorded a voice. A composer added sound. And at some point in episode 19, those shapes were arranged in a particular order, and something in your chest physically tightened, and your eyes stung, and you sat there in the dark feeling genuine grief for a person who has never existed and never will. And the strange part is not that it happened. The strange part is that you knew. The entire time, you knew. You could have told anyone who asked that this character was fictional, and you would have been correct, and it would have changed absolutely nothing about what you were feeling. That is worth understanding properly, because the usual explanation that you are just too emotional or too online is wrong. What is actually happening is much more interesting, and it says something about you that is worth knowing. Let's start with the part that surprises people most. Your brain does not have a separate system for fictional people. There is no module in there that sorts incoming humans into real and not real before deciding how much to care. When you watch a character, your brain runs the same machinery it runs for anyone. It reads the face, it infers what they are thinking, it predicts what they will do, it tracks whether they are safe. Psychologists call this mentalizing or theory of mind. It is the thing you do automatically, thousands of times a day, when you look at someone and understand that behind their eyes is a mind with its own contents. That system does not ask for identification. It cannot check whether the mind it is modeling has a body somewhere in the world. It just runs. You know this already from a different direction. You have watched a horror film, known with total certainty that nothing on screen was real, and still flinched. Your knowledge that it was fake did not reach the part of you that jumped. Those are different systems, and the emotional one does not take orders from the informed one. Fictional grief works exactly the same way. The knowing sits in one place, the feeling happens somewhere else entirely. But that alone does not explain anime, because plenty of stories exist and this medium seems to hit people harder than most. So let's look at what it is actually doing. Start with the face. There is a well-documented set of features that reliably triggers protective, affectionate feeling in humans. Large eyes relative to the head, a small nose, a rounded face, a high forehead. Researchers call it the baby schema, and it exists because infants have those proportions, and adults who responded warmly to them raised more surviving children. The response is automatic. It fires for puppies, for kittens, for cartoon animals, for anything with the right geometry. You do not decide to find it endearing. Now look at how anime draws a face. Enormous eyes, often with multiple highlights painted in to make them look wet and reflective, a tiny suggestion of a nose, a soft rounded jaw. It is, whether the medium intended it or not, an extremely efficient delivery system for that exact response. And then there is what those faces do. Human beings read emotion from very small signals. A real face communicates through movements so slight most people never consciously register them. Animation cannot rely on that. It has no subtle musculature. So it compensates by amplifying. The eyes widen further than any real eyes could. The pupils shrink to points. The shoulders drop lower. The pause holds longer. The result is that an animated face gives you a cleaner, louder version of the emotional signal than a real human face ever does. There is no social mask over it. No politeness layer. No one is managing their expression to seem fine. You are reading emotion with the noise removed. And that leads to the thing I think is the actual core of all of this. The part that explains why a fictional bond can feel deeper than a real one. You know them better than you know almost anyone alive. Think about what you are given. You hear their internal monologue. You are shown the memory they have never told anyone. You watch them alone, in the moment when nobody is performing. You see the reason behind the behavior, and then you watch them do the behavior, and you understand it completely. Now think about your actual friends. You have never once heard the inside of their head. You get the edited version, the version assembled for company. You do not know what they think about at 3 in the morning. You do not know the memory that explains why they are like that. Most of the time, you do not even know what they are like when you are not in the room. With a real person, you are working from the outside. With a character, you are handed the inside. So of course the bond feels unusually complete. You have access to a person's interior that no relationship in your life will ever give you. Not because your friends are hiding something, but because that is simply not something humans can share. Then add the hours. A single core of anime is around 12 episodes, roughly 4 to 5 hours. A longer series runs to 24, so 8 to 10. And unlike almost every relationship you have, that time is undivided. You are not half listening. You are not checking your phone. You are giving that person your complete attention. Ask yourself honestly how many hours of undivided attention you gave your closest friend last month. For most people, the number is smaller than they expect. Modern friendship is often conducted in fragments, in messages, in half-present conversations while doing something else. Meanwhile, a series delivers 10 uninterrupted hours of one person's inner life, with the boring parts removed and the meaningful moments scored with music. Your brain is not tracking whether that person exists. It is tracking attention, access, and repetition. On those three measures, the character wins easily. None of this is new, by the way, and researchers noticed it long before anime reached the West. In 1956, two sociologists named Horton and Wohl were watching how audiences responded to television personalities, and they described something they called a parasocial relationship, a bond that runs in one direction. The audience knows the figure intimately. The figure does not know the audience exists. They meant it as a description, not an insult. The point was that these relationships behave psychologically like relationships. They involve loyalty, expectation, a sense of knowing someone, and crucially, they involve loss. When a long-running series ends, some portion of the audience experiences something that looks a great deal like grief. Not a joke about grief, low mood, a sense of absence, the specific hollow feeling of a routine that used to contain someone and now does not. Researchers have studied this directly, and the response resembles the end of an ordinary relationship, scaled down but structurally the same. If you have ever finished a series and felt genuinely strange for 2 days afterwards, you were not being dramatic. You were doing exactly what the mechanism does. Now, the last layer, and this is the one that is genuinely engineered. The moment that broke you was designed with considerable precision. Consider what happens in the seconds around it. The music, which has been building underneath the scene, drops out entirely. Silence, which your brain treats as a signal that something important is occurring, then a held shot on a face, longer than a real conversation would ever hold eye contact, forcing you to keep reading it. Then a single line delivered quietly, instead of loudly, because restraint reads as authenticity. And then a piece of music you have heard before, in a happier episode, returning in a minor key. That last one is doing enormous work. It is calling up your own memory of the earlier scene and placing it against the current one, so you feel the distance between them yourself. Nobody told you the character has changed. You experienced it. Every one of those is a deliberate choice made by people who understand exactly how attention and emotion work. The scene was not capturing a moment. It was constructing one in you. And now you might expect the obvious objection. If it is all engineered and I have just explained the engineering to you, shouldn't that ruin it? It will not. And the reason why is the most useful thing in this entire video. Try it. Go back to a scene that destroyed you, knowing everything you now know. Watch the music drop out on cue. Watch the shot hold exactly 1 beat too long. Name every technique out loud as it happens. You will still feel it. This surprises people, but it is completely consistent with everything else here. Understanding a mechanism and being subject to it are separate operations. You know precisely how a jump scare works, and you jump. You know the exact chemistry of why food tastes good, and it tastes good. Your knowledge lives in one system, and the response runs in another, and the second one was never waiting for permission from the first. There is one difference though, and it is worth having. Once you can see the construction, you stop being confused about what happened to you. You are not left wondering why a cartoon reduced you to a state you have not reached at an actual funeral. You know, it was a face designed to trigger caregiving, given to you with the social mask removed, over 10 uninterrupted hours, scored by a professional at the exact moment your attention was fully committed. That knowledge does not take the feeling away. It just means you no longer have to be embarrassed by it. So here is where all of it lands. The mechanism does not care whether the person is real. The empathy circuitry, the face reading, the attachment, the sense of knowing someone, all of it runs on information rather than existence. Give it enough of the right input and it produces the output, and the output is not a simulation of feeling, it is feeling. There is no cheaper substitute version your brain keeps in stock for fictional people. Which means something that I think a lot of people get backwards. When you cried at that episode, the character was fake. Your crying was not. The grief was real grief, running through real neural tissue, in a real person sitting in a real room. Whatever you understood in that moment about loss, or loyalty, or how much someone can carry without saying anything, you actually understood it. That did not become fake by association. And here is the part I would actually like you to sit with. There is a reason a fictional character can reach something in you that the people around you cannot. They never ask anything back. You can feel the full weight of caring about someone with no risk at all, no possibility of rejection, no obligation, no chance they will see you differently afterwards. For a lot of people, that safety is the only condition under which they let themselves feel that much. That is not something to be ashamed of. It is worth noticing though, because if a drawing can produce that in you, then the capacity was already there. It is yours. The character did not install it. They just found a door that was easier to open than the ones you use every day. The feeling was never about them. It was proof of what you are still capable of, aimed at someone who could never be hurt by it. The interesting question is what happens if you aim it at someone who could.